The whole idea of cultural competent leaders does not mean the library administration. Hopefully they are culturally competent in their own right. But I'm talking about leaders, culturally competent leaders who could be a support staff member, who could be a librarian, who could be a member of the facilities department. You can be a cultural competent leader because you play a role in bringing your library organization around to embrace diversity. So it's not just the responsibility of the library administration. Although I would have to tell you that we probably would need more library administrations across this country that need to be culturally competent. Culturally competent leaders accept the value of diversity. Very simple. Just the fact that anyone in this room can value diversity is a step towards being culturally competent. And then the third one, which is the challenge, is that you're able to cope with the dynamics. And by dynamics, you know what I mean. Good and bad. Fun and challenging dynamics of the change that diversity brings. One of the things when I talk about, not so much cultural competencies, but when I talk about diversity in general, to make it sort of non-threatening, I talk about the idea of diversity where you have a department, a library department, that has 7 women and they just hired their first male librarian. Or where there's 7 people in that department and they hired their first GLBT person. Okay, that's change that diversity brings. I mean, those are just some of the examples. It doesn't necessarily have to be ethnic and racial. Now, characteristics of culturally competent staff, first of all, is attitude. You know what attitude is? Attitude not half the battle? Okay, it truly is. It truly is. I can walk into a group and have a little bit of a discussion. I don't know what they're doing upstairs, but it sounds really interesting. But just the fact, yeah, okay, just the fact that you can show that you are culturally aware and culturally sensitive to not only your own heritage, but also the cultural heritage of others. The being mindful, part of being an emotional, intelligent leader is being mindful of other people's emotions. And when we talk about diversity, we're talking about emotions, okay? Another attitude is that you're engaged in cultural, ethnic, and racial diversity. I had a great discussion in the car with Steve today about the whole iDEALS program that keeps growing and growing here in this community. And Steve, remind me, I don't think you don't have a Hispanic librarian on staff, do you, Steve?
Not at the moment.
Yeah. Which is okay. I mean, this just tells me that they have a great attitude at the Greensboro Public Library to be willing to take on and do iDEALS, and it continues to grow and to be a huge program here in this community. Another attitude is recognizing different learning styles. And that was something that I had to understand relative to native students. And I also had to understand that and be sensitive relative to native librarians at the University of New Mexico libraries. I had to be culturally aware of and sensitive to the way they operate and how critical and how vital their culture is to everything they do in their everyday lives. Having a wonderful attitude in terms of being comfortable with the differences. And that's hard because you know what? We tend to fear what we don't know. Was I fearful of having to work with these Saudi students? You bet I was. I was. Because I didn't know a thing about them. I only read about it, heard stories about it, read it in the newspaper, saw things on TV. So we tend to fear the unknown. And the fact that, and differences, and the fact that you can be comfortable with people who are different than you, I think is very, very important as part of a positive attitude in being a culturally competent person. Now, relative to skills, the whole idea that we value people as individuals. I value different ethnic and racial and cultural groups, and the whole idea of universal identity, that we're accepting of everybody. It's a skill to be able to encourage positive interactions between minority users and the library staff. And again, it doesn't matter what type of library. To be able to encourage that is developing a strong skill. The idea that we would promote a very welcoming and positive environment is part of the skill of being, of the skills of being a culturally competent person. So far, you know what, those three, at least those three, including the fourth, let's get into the fourth one, avoid stereotyping. Do you have to be a member of a minority group to have those skills or develop those skills? Absolutely not. And you develop these skills, and you are becoming more and more a culturally competent person. One of the things that I want us to do also is to be able to engage in a discussion after I finish this. Again, I'm hoping that I'm presenting this so it's a non-threatening, non-intimidating, and I want people to be able to ask questions and share comments. Other skills, understand that you're able to understand and you feel comfortable discussing the whole concept of cultural differences. Ask questions. I had to ask a friend of mine, actually she was a full-blooded Native American from Wisconsin, and if you've met any Native Americans from Wisconsin, they don't look like me, they look more like you folks.